is a panel about hip hop's new love affair with blockchain, and we have a fantastic host for this segment in the music track. We have Mike John, who is the founder and CEO of Digital Mindstate, which is a creative agency that serves the likes of iHeartRadio, Radio One, T-Mobile, and many others. And also the first podcast that focuses on tech, music, and pop culture. This podcast is called Check This Out, and you can download that on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever else you get your music and podcast content, iTunes as well. So give a warm round of applause for our host and moderator, Mike Johns.
I'll cut the check later. Yes, indeed. Thank you guys, everybody, for coming out with us today. We have a rock star panel. I'm really excited for this ensemble of rock star individuals, or as I call them in hip-hop, game spitters. Jay-Z, game spitters. That's people who really know the business. So first up, I want to introduce everybody, starting with my man, Aubrey Flynn.
Aubrey Flynn, former Chief Digital Officer at Revolt TV. Today I'm representing the nonprofit sector, sky'sthelimit.org. We're using blockchain to do some really interesting things that I'd love to talk about.
Outstanding. Real humble. He has an extensive background working with Mr. none other than P. Diddy, but that's why the suit, you see his game. Moving right along, we have the homegirl, Shalita Burks. I call her this year's smart artist. She debated with me on the term, but a smart artist is someone that, check this out, feels uses technology to connect with fans and also to monetize. She's a rock star, has been featured in Forbes magazine. Girl, tell them about yourself.
So I'm Shalita Burke, and first of all, artists are all intelligent to some degree. All artists are intelligent. Just want to say that.
There she goes.
I'm an artist and technologist, scientist, blah, blah, blah.
Rock star. Yes, indeed. Byron is with us. This is the CEO of Recording Artists Guild, another rock star. Please tell me a little bit about yourself.
Byron Booker with Recording Artists Guild. Started it 10 years ago to be an advocate and liaison from artists to the industry and kind of decipher all the models and opportunities in the marketplace. So we do live stream events. We help with publishing, licensing, touring, merch, all kinds of stuff. And here to talk about how blockchain is impacting artists and where it's going and what we're doing to really help educate and onboard artists to what's happening next in music.
Awesome. Last but not least, we have the final rock star on this panel, Lauren Bizzle, a technologist. Please tell them about yourself.
Hey everybody, my name is Lauren Bissell. I've been a music producer, concert producer for the past 10 to 12 years now, I guess. Have had the absolute honor and pleasure of working with everyone from Jay-Z and Nas in the hip-hop world to Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard in the country world. So super excited to talk about hip-hop here today and representing Immutable Music, which is basically a think tank to help bring technologists and musicians together in a way that is comfortable and real conversation can happen.
Awesome. I'm going to dive in. First up, the DNA of hip-hop combines hustling and being a trendsetter. So blockchain technology makes for the new love affair. Even with blockchain technology still in its infancy, hip-hop will play in the hands and shaping the perception of blockchain and music. Aubrey, I want to start with you. The pressure in hip-hop, artists, they're fight tooth and nail who can be one up on the next, from Lil Wayne and his Samsung deal to Jay-Z, everybody embracing technology, everybody trying to really be, the maverick. Question I would have, why, in your opinion, does blockchain present such a serious attraction for hip-hop artists and other music artists in general?
Great question. So when you look at the landscape of hip-hop over the last few decades, since its emergence, the story is really about the opportunity or lack thereof for a particular community to start from the bottom and become successful. So we have a number of pioneers, Jay-Z, Sean Diddy Combs, the list goes on, that have become very successful entrepreneurs in multiple industry verticals. For instance, I've had the opportunity to work with Mr. Combs over the last 10 years across, retail with Macy's, spirits with Diageo, television with Revolt, multiple distribution networks. The list goes on. So how does the empowerment scale going forward? Blockchain is a technology. It's bigger than the cryptocurrencies that are so volatile right now in the marketplace. So now is a lot like the late 90s where, there was a dot-com bubble, but, people didn't necessarily understand the full opportunity with the internet. Now we're realizing that today, billion-dollar organizations are being born, and they're scaling dramatically and very quickly. So here you have an audience of people who have never had opportunity, never had access, never had control over things like their intellectual property, the knowledge of how to sort of maneuver in the space. And there's an opportunity.
That DNA we're talking about.
Absolutely, just because of the hustler's mentality of this hip hop culture, trying to create something from nothing. So now, just like the internet was able to disrupt a lot of these systems in place in the entertainment space, democratizing how things get done for artists, the blockchain has a revolutionary, potential.
Righteous. Let me, in that same vein, what role has trust played in this attraction?
So trust, let's talk about trust and the lack thereof. I mean, emerging artists, they have intellectual property. They have creative that they're looking to monetize and earn a living for themselves and their families. And not a lot of them have the opportunity to learn about the legalities, the finance, and a lot of the other systems in place and the institution that's in place, that is the entertainment industry. So they're leveraging technology now to cut out the middleman. A lot of middlemen, some have been very shady. Not all of them have been operating above board to a lot of independent young artists coming up. A lot of people have been screwed. This technology puts the power in the hands of the creator to own and monetize in a very transparent, in a very private, and open way. And I think that's why trust is important, because the power is now in the hands of the people.
Excellent. Shalita, smart artists are exploring blockchain as a big spreadsheet in the sky that could help them seize control back of music. In your eyes, does blockchain have the ability to revolutionize music, and has it already started, or is it just hype?
Before I answer this question, I'd like to provide more context of what blockchain actually is.
Please.
And so I'd like everyone to think about how, when you first got introduced to the internet, how vast the possibilities were for you, and how rapidly in the 5 to 10 year span that you were exposed to it, how things and industries were moving and changing. When you think about the blockchain, think about it like a concept. Like, for instance, you can go online and you can create a domain name, and you can create a concept of a website, and you can deploy things and applications and what have you on a website. Think of blockchain as that. Right now, the limiting definition is that blockchain is like a global spreadsheet that we can update in real time where you can't delete an entry. But that's only one aspect of it. Like, I believe in 20 years or less, every single human being will have the aspect of creating their own blockchains with ease of access, with, computing being less and less expensive as we go along, and more faster as we go along. And you'll be able to create your own blockchains, your own parameters for those chains. And in that space, I believe that the 10-year-olds and 20-year-olds of tomorrow, in the 10-year spans, will be able to interface in a way that's more transparent for everyone. So how does that apply to the music industry? Well, the way it applies to the music industry is when artists are giving things to their fans, the fans know with blockchain technology, if you use it in this way because it's values neutral, that the asset that the artist is giving to that fan is given to them, and they know that, wow, when I consume this music, the artist is actually getting paid. And I know that because I see the transaction, I see the transparency, and I trust this aspect of this transparency. That's only one of many applications of the blockchain.
Very good, very good. Lauren, blockchain in music has the potential of forming a collective truth, a new data standard that the industry will ultimately have to adapt. Are we beyond the proof of concept right now?
No, I don't think we're beyond proof of concept at all. If anything, we're still working, I think, to develop something that is a true proof of concept. You know, I mean, to Shalita's point, I completely agree with you. You know, there's a million different applications that can be created on blockchain. There's a million different applications for blockchain. So, you know, we're exploring a lot of those right now. I think I'm very interested in some of the platforms that have been developed that are trying to kind of, you know, either take over what Spotify is doing or Apple Music and create new distribution platforms. I think that's interesting. We're in the very early stages of that. I haven't seen anything that I think is going to take over overnight in that area. But what I'm really happy to see right now is companies like Apple who are working to implement blockchain for their metadata, for their IP for artists, for tracking. And I think that's where we're going to see the first use cases that are real and successful, and that will set industry standards.
Interesting. That just a perfect segue. Byron, let me ask you this. Artists have traditionally been first to work and last to be paid. How can blockchain technology revamp outfits such as your organization, BMI, and outfits like ASCAP?
Well, I think that it's really, like many of the panelists said today, putting the power back directly with the artists to interface directly with their fans, and blockchain will allow them to, in a sense, make that transaction seamless. And so if they can put their music out, they can interact with their fan, and they can make that transaction happen directly, then they get paid first, you know? So,
Right.
And that's gonna cut out a lot of middlemen, you know, like was said here today. So I think really grasping that and having that technology, those tools available to artists is what's going to happen next. It's going to be very disruptive, obviously, and it's going to, you know, be some scrambling, but this is where we are. I think that it's definitely something where little by little the industry players, the artists, the creators are becoming aware of it. And in just in a minute, if it's not Apple, it'll be another platform emerging or multiple emerging, and there'll probably be many case studies and showing artists how they can directly transact with, whether it be streaming or some other form, whether it's ticketing or any other way to monetize their content. That's going to happen, and they're going to be first to be paid, and they're going to be paid quickly, and it's definitely going to be a new thing that the industry and everyone will have to adapt to.
When do you see that actually happening? How long out are we?
I think that we're probably in the window of the next 24 to 72 months, where you'll have not necessarily the whole industry adapt, but you'll have some case studies and you'll have some growth with some notable talent. And you know, and then once that happens, and there's also been some notable talent. I'd say that, like top 40 artists that everyone knows, household names.
Do you think that could maybe put pressure on Sony to adapt?
Yeah.
And change Ray's view
Yeah.
from no
Yeah,
to
well,
something else?
As you know,
Just curious.
the music industry has been notorious for being late to the party. So it's probably going to happen again. But you have some new companies that are going to emerge overnight. There's some players even here in the audience that I know are working on platforms that are very, very innovative. They're working with top tier talent. I see somebody from Vest, which is a really cool platform. We have a platform called Royalty Coin. You can go to royaltycoin.com. It's something that we're testing with content. And you know, it's a lot of case study that's happening. But once you have the fans and the end consumer buying into this, that's going to push the whole industry to adapt, I think.
Got you. Excellent. With this, I have a good example. This is Kanye West's song Glow. I like to call this a publisher's nightmare. Look at how many people are involved. And I didn't have the time to print out his other song called Fade. Check this out, by the way. Fade, which has an even longer credit listing. Shalita, going back to you, as you kind of gave some context to blockchain, when we have situations like this, How does smart contracts solve matters like this and what other artists are going through?
Well, in its true essence, let's start with the definition for smart contracts, just
Go
to
ahead.
give
I
context.
like how we do the true, first the definition of blockchain, and then we just revert back over to you again, and now she's
Yes.
going to give the definition for smart contracts.
Yes, of course.
That's why she's the smart artist.
So, smart contracts, in its true essence, is supposed to cut out the middleman by being an autonomous agent that executes agreements. So think about it like a virtual lawyer contract without the middleman. That's how they're supposed to work. Now, there's a lot of platforms that actually are the middleman, and they create the smart contract for you, like, out of the box tools kind of way, and that like defeats the purpose. So I just want to mention that. So in this case, the way this autonomous agreement could be set within parameters that you set as an artist or as a producer team or as a record label would be all the writers on this actual song would start with a particular percentage that's deemed by whichever parties makes those decisions. Maybe it's the manager, maybe it's the artist, maybe it's the writers, but it's deemed by the person who wants to make the decision. But after the decision's made with what splits everyone gets for the first part of the song. So we're going to start with the sample credits first. First, you start with the originals of all those songs and all the writers and all the producers of those songs first, and you put in all the percentages. And not only do you put all the percentages, but you route where those percentages go. So maybe you want to split 25 on this writer, and you want to split like 35 on that and another 5, and then you have some other pieces. And then maybe you just want US to do this particular thing, and then you want like Asia to do a separate thing. Well, you would deem that in the smart contract. Then, after you agree on the percentages that are going to come out of this money asset, which is the song, then from that layer, so that topology sits here, if you were to look at it on a graph, the topology after that would be the person using this particular song. So there would be a clause in that smart contract that deems if this person samples the song, if it's approved or not approved, so just assume that it's approved, then those percentages get cut like this. So maybe the person that's using it after that doesn't get anything, but it's deemed by whoever sets that decision, and that could change based on variables. So think of it like you have changing variables that you can change at any moment based on what parameters you set. So that's topology 2. Then after topology 2, if someone actually covers that song or resamples that song in whatever percentage, then you create another contract for that to be that clause. So it gets pretty complex, but the cool part about all of this is
What's
everyone
the cool
gets,
part?
everyone who you deem based on percentages actually gets paid to the lifetime of that contract. And it's done without a middleman. It's done autonomously, and it's done right when the transaction happens. So it happens at the transaction layer if you set it up that way. So it gives you the freedom to decide how things are going to flow when it comes to your virtual payments.
Nice.
Can I add to that?
Sure, let's go ahead.
I just want to add that also one key factor that's going to be happening is the ability for artists to get paid every 24 hours.
Right.
Versus the way that it's traditionally done, which
Yes.
is the artist will get paid, you wait for 3 months for your money to come
Yes.
from Spotify, and another 3 months for it
Yes.
to go through Sony and Universal and all that stuff.
Yes, but the world that you're describing is only possible when the artist takes control of their audience. And that world only exists when the artist understands the power that they have. Because the person who owns the audience is the person who wins. And the artist actually owns the audience, but they give it up to these platforms. Why do that when you can control your audience, where you can give direct content to them, because you're the reason why they're there? Like, these platforms would be nothing without artists.
That's right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Good point there. Lauren, let me ask you this, and you can maybe piggyback off of what Shalia said. Blockchain technology remains largely untested. First up, most consumers don't even know what blockchain is. Ray would agree with that. Second, the value of the token varies. How can the industry build on an unstable currency?
Well, I think that's an excellent question. And, touching back on all the different applications that blockchain can actually have in the industry, I don't think that currency is the primary use for blockchain, especially in the music industry. I think it's more, smart contracts, management of intellectual property rights for artists, how much their song, how many times their song has been consumed or distributed.
Is that a problem in itself when, especially, I'd say, and Aubrey, feel free to jump in, in hip hop, gospel music, pretty much all genres, the first thing they wanted is how do I get paid?
Right, right. I think
And that's that immediate gratification versus what this space actually looks like.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, again, what do you want to be paid in, right? Do you want to be paid in traditional fiat money? Are you willing to accept Bitcoin? Are you wanting to create a token or a coin of your own? What does that even mean? How do I manage that? You know, it's the success of a coin is based on the community surrounding that coin. And the people that are willing to use it, how much value is attributed to it. So again, if we're just talking about traditional fiat payments here, that's more about a record of how much, a song has been consumed or how many albums have been sold. And so, I don't think that every artist or every label needs to make a coin for themselves.
So
that tracking is a little more.
If I could add to that, there's an example where a nonprofit organization, sky'sthelimit.org, they partnered up with Accenture Labs to create a system whereby there's a token that you can donate to help young entrepreneurs in underserved communities get their businesses built. But instead of the token being the actual investment, it's not the monetary investment. It's really just an open and transparent way for people to vote on who's getting the funding. So everyone in the community understands, based on this open, transparent, network that we've built, like how and why and who is receiving this funding. So there are a number of benefits that are above and beyond monetary compensation. Mm-hmm. So, we need to think about things like transparency, the opportunity cost of not being able to, afford lawyers. Some people are blocked out of a lot of businesses due to a lack of financing, investment. Some loans are too expensive. So by democratizing these financial institutions and some of the other systems in place, there's still a lot of value there. There's still a lot of opportunity created that's above and beyond just getting a royalty check.
And so that kind of
I'd like
goes
to
into
add to that.
Go ahead.
I think that the future is moving towards the eradication of money. But the step before that is the future looks like this, that when artists need money, instead of going to a bank and what have you, they're going to create their own money. And that's not only going to stay in the artists' communities. I think that it's going to be a global phenomenon, that when communities need money, instead of going to their government or going to the banks or going to investors and what have you, they're going to create their own money. Because with cryptocurrencies, you can do that in 2 seconds, literally. You can go to different websites and you can create your own currency. It doesn't take a lot. And you are the bank. There's no middleman. There's no more person that you go to a bank and you give the cash to, or you give whatever assets that you have, like gold, to the person, and they evaluate it and they give you like a dollar amount for that. I think the dollar is definitely going to be it's going to be an antique.
I love it. Byron, it's been reported that as much as 20 to 50% of the music payments doesn't even make it to the rightful owner. How can blockchain fix this? Can it?
Well, the way we're implementing blockchain at the Guild, first of all, there's a lot of education that has to happen with the artists. So
this goes right back into the notion of even Aubrey and back to Shalita, the smart artists.
Yes, the smart
leveraging
artists.
technology for the greater gain.
Absolutely.
And even in that, and listening to this discussion, there still has to be a learning curve.
Right.
From the rapper in Compton who needs that get money right now.
Yeah.
Or the one in Brooklyn who was on it right now, versus hearing what you guys are sharing, right?
Yeah,
because bills got to be paid.
Yeah.
And we're talking almost in some of these artists, let's say the little who of the world, maybe
I like that name, by the way.
You name, huh?
Lil Who, that's
Little
catchy.
Who, that might be a new rapper, live from Compton. But they want to hear it now, right? So a lot of this, they're also dealing with these artists across the board in the age of entitlement. So how does that message, how do you educate?
Yeah, so that's a big part of what we do. And so we try to come up with tools that help from the inception of the content, the asset. So for instance, the split sheet. There's artists that I meet that's been in the business 5-10 years, never fill out a split sheet. That's where it starts.
Yes.
Where you were just kind of breaking down the order of what needs to happen, starting with the sample. We do that for artists, and so it's a very antiquated system now. You fill out basically a document, you pass it around the room, and artists fill it out, and they're supposed to put their PRO, their publisher, all the label, all that stuff on a piece of paper. Doesn't happen,
Right.
and that's why 80% or 20% or 40% of people down the road don't get paid, right? Because all this stuff gets lost. So we digitized it. So if you download the RAG app, for instance, you can fill out your split sheet right there, put all the information, and it's not uncomfortable because you're in the room, be like, yo, okay, I did the hook,
Right.
you did the verse, this looked good, okay, cool. One administrator fills it out, puts the email addresses, it docu-signs to everybody, and we keep a record of it at the Guild. Everyone gets that, and that's on digital, is digitized right there. Yeah, so what happens with the DCPs is, like, Pandora's trying to figure out, they're dealing with the label, they got to figure out the publishing information. Sometimes they don't have it all. They've got to do all that, and the label isn't incentivized to help them because that's not putting money in their pocket.
Right.
So it's like, so what we want to do is like get artists like write all this stuff down. You can do it on your smartphone.
Right.
Everyone can get a copy, and ultimately one day, as it relates to blockchain, all that stuff will be translated and attached to that asset, and people will get paid more frequently. They'll get paid quickly, and it'll be less confusion.
Gotcha.
But you have to start with the artist. Absolutely, and
Well,
that's what
another
we're-
thing I'd like
yeah.
to add on to that
Yeah.
is right now when you create a song, we have a relationship with the writers, and we have a relationship to this idea concept of authorship. And I think that in our future, because of AI technology and all these technologies that we have available to us, there's going to be our relationship to authorship in general, like writership in general, is going to change. Like, for instance, just to conceptualize for anyone who doesn't create music in the audience, everyone who creates Facebook posts, has everyone done that before? Created a Facebook post? Who's the author of the content when someone comments something clever? Who's the author? And I think as we grow as a society, our relationship to who created something is going to change. And so our relationship to how that transaction works should change too. And I think the two and two don't go together, and that we have to have conversations like this one that we're having in the room together collectively as communities, where everyone has a voice and everyone has a say on how this works.
I love Shalita.
Very smart. artist.
Wrapping up here, just because I'm getting the cue. Is blockchain the music industry's silver bullet? And what can we expect in the next 5 years? I want to just go down the line. Let's start with you, Lauren. You look like you're ready to answer that one.
Well, I wanted to say one last thing, especially to developers in the room and entrepreneurs in the room. It's when you're creating your product, I would advise to make it approachable for labels and for managers and people beyond artists. Artists are going to pioneer this, but I think a lot of people who maybe haven't worked in the music industry for a long time don't know that sometimes they're asking artists to do things that they can't do because of their contracts with labels. So we want to make this something that labels like. Let's change the way the business works, not tear it apart again. So if there's a way to make this profitable and positive for everybody, let's keep our industry not operating on fear like we have been for the past
Yes.
20 years and go from there.
Good point. All right.
This is how
Byron?
change happens.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that silver bullet, I like to stay away from those things because I think that it's definitely going to be a big part of what's going to change things radically, where there's a direct relationship between the creator and the consumer.
Okay.
But I think you're still going to need individuals, institutions like the nonprofit Sky's the Limit, like Recording Artists Guild, like just advocates that educate, that help administer, because creatives are still going to need help. They're still going to need, the blockchain is there, but they're going to need people. They're going to need teams, institutions to help them on board that. So it's still going to take, it's going to be disruptive, but just like the internet, new industries are going to be created, new positions, and just new roles. So I think blockchain is going to be an amazing tool. but it's still going to require people and organizations to help implement that.
Got you.
Yeah.
The ever so lovely Shalita, please, what is your take? Let's wrap it up here.
I think blockchain is the future of money, and it's also the future of transparency, and it's also the future of how we want to use it. And so I hope everyone in this room is inspired to do something in their own lives in the way that they see fit in terms of what they want to create with it, because it's open for everyone.
Wow. Aubrey.
I mean, again, I think we're here in 2019 at a place very similar to 99. Don't look at cryptocurrencies and the volatility there as accurate representation of what's happening with the blockchain. Things are volatile now because there is a lack of education, adoption, and just general understanding. But there's a fundamental technology here that could revolutionize finance and open up participation to billions of people worldwide.
Yes.
So the idea is for us to embrace the disruption and find ways to empower each other to succeed as a community.
Yes.
Nice. You see Diddy adapting blockchain maybe in the next 5
I
years?
see Diddy as one of the pioneers of technology and entertainment. So he's doing that and much more.
Outstanding. Well, I'm getting the cue. Time's up. I want to thank everybody for coming out. Please give a round of applause to this awesome Rockstar panel.